Welcome to the Roundtable. I'm your host, Jim Hicks, and tonight we're going to talk about eligibility and responsibility. Something that each and every one of you, matter of fact, cut your volume up. Tell everybody right now to come and get in front of the screen, because this is a very important topic. I have on the Roundtable with me tonight a very great collection of eyeballs. First of all, to my left, I have Chris Walker. On this side, we have Dane Irvin. On the side, Marlon Lowe. On the side, we have Peter Sweathan. On this side, Alan Branch. Also, last but not least, we have Kobe Baker from the NCAA Eligibility Division. And this is very important because now you guys get to see Kobe. And he doesn't look like that guy that played for the Lakers, a little bit older than him, but guess what? He can ball in regards to the amateur basketball setting. Now, we're going to get this thing rolling. While we got Kobe now, was directed to you first. In regards to this weekend, you were in Houston, the NCAA, you held a valuable eligibility workshop, kind of titled Eligibility 101. What was that? Why did you do that, first of all, and how do you feel about it after this taking place?
Well, first of all, you know, the opportunity to be in Houston and to be in Dallas and be in the state of Texas as a result of the recently adopted new academic legislation, okay, that takes effect August 1st, 2016. This actually affects your current 10th graders and 9th graders currently in high school. And so, unlike other times, the NCAA has made some significant changes. This time they did some research and they figured out that this will probably be the most impactful change that they've ever been associated with because of socioeconomic situations, your different demographics, resources that secondary institutions have or don't have, and our inability to be able to so-called regulate that. You know, it's hard to regulate secondary education when you really don't have a stake in it. There's so many variables that go into how schools are funded and that type of thing. So the NCAA says, well, we gotta do a job to educate those that need to be educated from a 50,000 foot level, if you will. And so that's a national campaign. The Eligibility Center then took it a step beyond it and said, listen, let's figure out where our student athletes are coming from. Let's scour the country, let's figure out what our top 10 markets are, and let's get into those. So you're talking about, you know, your Chicago, Illinois, your Detroit, Michigan, your Washington, D.C., your Atlanta, Georgia, your Dallas, Texas, your Houston, Texas, so forth and so on. Texas obviously is very important to me because A, I still have a home here. B, I coach at the University of North Texas, have a 10-year Division I coaching background, and coached in the SEC as well, and spent a lot of time recruiting here in Texas. When they created my so-called position, they needed someone who could be relative in these communities, who had recruited the student athletes that come from the cities like Houston and Dallas, and who also has an ability to kind of maybe bring people together, okay? And Texas is my region. I'm responsible for Texas. And as I kind of got involved here in Houston, I decided or figured out that to do the things that really need to be done to educate and increase awareness, I got to get involved with the city and make things happen with the people that know the city. So I'm kind of an old John Wooden guy. Nobody cares, you know, who gets the credit, you know, when there's success. You know what I'm saying? And I approached Jim, talked to Jim. He and I got together. Obviously, Jim is a very resourceful person in the state of Texas. Friend Alan Branch here as well, goes way back, knows me. Chris Walker, he and I go way back, and we kind of put our heads together, and all of this kind of came together as a team effort, if you will, of sorts. Daryl Wade, some other people that are not here in this room were able to introduce me to the people that I needed to talk to in order to make this effort happen. Talked to Philip O'Neill with the Fort Bend ISD, and he basically said, you know what, this is something that we need to do. And my hope was that it would be a pilot of sorts, you know, get an ISD involved, let's get a major turnout, and then let's see if it'll carry over. Well, they kind of took the lead on it and kind of championed the effort, if you will, to get the coaches out and get the parents out, and they came out in droves. It was unbelievable, the feedback and the interaction that we were able to have with the parents on things that you guys are probably going to talk about today, but things that are going on in the community all over the Houston area, not just in Sugar Land and Fort Bend ISD. So hopefully we can do more things like that. I'm thankful for the opportunity to be here. Marlon actually invited me to come. I went over this morning and saw him at some workouts with John Lucas, and the opportunity to come and share some of the things that we are trying to do came up, and this obviously gives me a great opportunity to do those things. But I just want everybody to know that, you know, we're taking a different approach with Houston. I need everybody on board, you know, ideas, any resources that we can lend you guys. That's what we are here for. As I do every presentation, I tell everybody, I am a resource. Use me, call me. And unfortunately, after that presentation was over, I got 35 emails from parents. I got about 50 phone calls a day. And so it tells me that that work is being done and it's good and it needs to continue to happen. But if we don't take any interest in our student athletes to get the information that they need as it relates to becoming Division I eligible, we are doing them a disservice. It's not it's not the chore of the summer basketball coach. It's not the chore. It's not a blame game. It's not for any individual. It's for all those who touch kids on a day-to-day basis. You need to know what's going on, and that's the point. And if you don't care about it, you need to get out of the business. I tell high school coaches and summer basketball coaches. I just left Las Vegas on a panel with Nike talking to their coaches. If you don't take the time to know these standards, get out of the business, please, because we don't need you in the business, and that's the reality of it.
One of the major problems that's going on, and I know it's like Digital Underground said back in the day, Humpty Hump, quote unquote. I love quoting rappers. He said, all around the world the same song. Prep schools.
Okay.
Eligibility. What's the myth? The myth is that prep schools have been told to make parents believe that they're certified or accredited, when the truth is some of them may not be.
Well, there are a couple of things. Number one, from an eligibility center standpoint, we created what we call a new high school review. Okay, so since July, this process came up in July. Since July, we have had over 250 new school applications, meaning a new school is created, okay, for whatever reasons that they are created. Let's just say for the interest of basketball. They then have to submit an application, and there's a process that goes on back and forth between the eligibility center and the high school review department and that new school. Now, per legislation, that school has to meet the guidelines set forth by the membership. Who is the membership? The membership is all the Division I schools, all the Division II schools, so forth and so on. They tell us what they want us to enforce as it relates to new schools being approved for core course lists. Okay? It is a process that goes on that is not done overnight. It's kind of like, think about it in terms of a relationship. I hope none of you guys have done this, but you don't meet a girl tonight and marry her tomorrow. You know, there needs to be some fundamental things that are in place and that need to be made sure that are being done as you say that you do them. Okay.
So how long does this process take normally?
It depends. There's not a set timeline on it. Okay. But most of the time, it's a process that's long enough that ensures that policies and procedures are in place. Okay. You have strategies and plans in place. Okay. There's all kinds of different things that involve. I'll give you an example. How do you change a grade? What's your grade changing procedures? Things of that nature that they want to make sure are going on at that school as they would be going on at a traditional school like a Fort Bend ISD or an Aldine or Sci Fair, so forth and so on. So they have to vet all those different things out. Okay. Now, in the meantime, that doesn't preclude or keep a student athlete from going to that school. Okay. They can still go to that school. If a kid finishes at that school and graduates and he's a Division I eligible, there is a process that he will then go through, which is basically an individual evaluation where they will take and pull apart the work that he completed at that school and make sure that that work was done at the level that it was intended per the legislation. Okay, so now what does that mean for you parents and for those that are courting the kids that want to go to these schools but may not be approved? Well, parents don't know what the process is. Okay, those involved though, they do need to know what the process is. So one of the things that we spent a topic on last night, and we've talked talked a lot about this, is to utilize our website. It's www.eligibilitycenter.org. Okay, once you pull that website up, there's a place, high school administrator or administrator. You click that button, the next page that pulls up is a resources page. Right on that tab, it's only 3 or 4 tabs on there, but I think it's the 3rd or 4th tab. It'll say list of courses, approved courses. All you have to do is click that button, type in the school name, type in the city, and it will come up and tell you this school has a list of approved courses, this school does not have a list of approved courses. Simple as that. Now, if you are a parent, all right, and I don't gamble, okay, but if somebody tells me if you walk through that door, you got a 50% chance of getting punched in the face, or if you walk through that door, you got a 100% chance of not getting punched in the face, probably gonna go with the chance of 100%. Because I don't really know what that outcome is gonna be. And so the safest thing is to make sure if you are approached, or if kids have opportunities to go to the schools, that this school is in good standing with the NCAA, and that's the easiest way to do it. There are no phone calls that need to be made. You know, there's no taking your word from the school or for whoever is recruiting you to go to that school. It's simple as get on the website, put the school name in, see if they come back as an approved school with a list of courses, and then at that point you can make a decision. If you're willing to make a decision and they don't have a list of approved courses, then you've taken it out of your hands. And no one knows what that outcome is, because the school may be, looks like brick and mortar on the front, great computer labs, nice classrooms, coaches smile good, talks good, good workouts, all these different things. But that back end and that back office, from an administrative standpoint, nothing's going on. And that's the only thing that the NCAA cares about. See, we don't just show up at schools to see how schools look. No, this is about legislative type things that you need to be able to submit to have one of these schools approved. And if you can't do that, if you don't meet our legislation, then you don't get approved. And it's just as simple as that. The problem is we don't know how to access that. That's why I'm in Houston, because that is a major problem in Houston. We all know it, okay? And I don't care what coaches are saying, okay? It's not about that. It's about parents being equipped to know where they can go find out the things themselves and then make a good decision for their loved one.
Let me ask you a question, Coach.
Yes.
Just going along with that. Piggybacking on what you said about going to the 40H form, it was, you know, the list of approved core courses. You can still have a 48H or approved core courses and still be pending.
Yeah.
You can have a list of classes. And before you answer that, what they also don't know is, and what's not told to them, unless they make a phone call, is that if you go to a school like that, you got to keep all of your work.
Yes.
If you go to Fort Bend Marshall, you don't have to keep anything.
Yes.
But if you go to those schools, you have to have you got to keep every single thing that you've ever done in that school, and people don't know that.
No.
And that's why when a college coach like myself back in the day would come in, I'd have to go back to the 9th grade when the kids, you know, in the 12th grade, and I'm like, hey, do you have any work at all? And they have no work. So the NCAA was like, well, how do we know? How can we certify these classes? I've been through that 1,000 times. The parents don't know. They got to keep their work. More importantly, the teachers don't know. They got to keep their work. And depending on the state association, they're not required by law to keep the work.
You like the Harriet Tubman of getting guys qualified that ain't got a chance to get qualified.
Hold on.
I gotta
be out now.
But I mean, you pass the torch. I mean, you pass the torch.
If you Harriet Tubman, then Harriet Tubman.
You can't turn. You can't turn. You want to took the bullet. But I think that, like I said, I've known Kobe for a long time. The things that Coach Walker, Chris Walker are talking about. Jimmy's right. This is something I've championed for a long time. This is actually a great day in my career in grassroots basketball for this to actually be going on right now. Get right back to the point. One of the things that I think that was left out on the 48H piece and send them to the website, that's great. So people have to call me so much. I love to give a workshop and repeat this. I'm glad some of the people at the NCAA did listen to me 3 or 4 years before you were there, and I was saying that this needed to happen. That we need to educate our people, just as Jimmy said in the feed earlier in the introduction. But when these new schools are starting up, it's what's called a provisionary. You correct me anytime you feel like I'm wrong. there's a provisionary period that goes by, similar to like what went on in Prime Prep when Jeff Goodman wrote the article, had all these parents blowing me up saying that the kid at TCU, Kavar Shepard and Jordan Mickey at LSU wouldn't get eligible until all the parents are ready to move their kid. And it goes back to, like Jimmy said in the beginning, and Coach Okobi said over here, is that people are operating off of ignorance. And ignorance doesn't mean that you're stupid, it's just lack of understanding of the process. And what goes on with a new school like Coach is talking about, or Kobe's talking about here, for years of calling him Coach, I can't quite shake that. What Kobe's speaking of here is that there's a provisional type window that goes by. Let's say Peter Swam academic recruit starts a new charter school. They go through the application process through high school review with Mark Hicks and Jeremy McCool, who I've known for a lot of years. They come down, they do the application process, same thing that Trent International went through, same thing that Christian Life went through when they were leaving from the old Heritage Christian. That was my first experience with this, is that they'll have a 48H up, right, Kobe? But the classes won't be populated. And what happens is that the NCAA comes down, the review part, a different group than Kobe's group, comes down, reviews the process, sees what's going on, according to the application that was initially submitted, to monitor to see if what was on the application is actually physically in place. Like he says, the gyms can be pretty, if the registrar, the counselor, somebody's not behind the scenes as an administrator carrying this process out, then that's where they're looking for, that's where the ball is dropped. So they put the school up, it has a 48H. The parent goes there and looks at a 48H, and there are no classes. First thing that should tell you is that they're in a provisionary, a transition, introductory type situation. And what you have there is, just like Coach Walker brought up a second ago, is that all of the classwork that's done in a core subject needs to be retained and kept on record, which we've seen many of times, like you spoke of earlier, that's not done. So when that stuff is kept on record, so now every kid that comes from an institution of this nature is going to go through a review process. Everybody went crazy when Jordan Mickey and the dean non-qualified upon review, I think would be a correct way of saying it, right, Kobe?
I'm not 100% sure.
Well, there's a review process until they've gone.
Yeah, they're just under review.
Under review.
PSA
okay.
reviews.
PSA review. Prospective Student Athlete Review. We call it that then, playing on the words of it. But at the end of the day, kids that come from those institutions that are in those provisionary windows are going to be evaluated to see that what was initially said is actually going on. And after, like he didn't put an exact time on that, that could be 1 year, 2 classes, 3 classes, depending on the number of athletes maybe that come through that window until they're satisfied.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's important to note here too, and I want to be very clear on this. The Eligibility Center, we're not in the business of defining what a school is and what a school is not. That's not our role. That's not what we do. We are only there to ensure that the legislation that has been approved by our membership is being met. Okay, that's it. It's not to deter a kid or steer a kid or a student athlete to a particular school, or to say that you can't be in business because of your school or how your school. That's not what we are. That's not what we are in business to do. That's not our role. That's not what we are supposed to do. That's not what we are doing. The reality of it is though that there is a process that every single school goes through, and they have to meet the legislation, as I've said before, before that school can be approved for courses. And so that process can be drawn out for a period of time, depending on how an institution is actually working with the Eligibility Center to get those documents in and things like that. And then you also have to understand, it's kind of, it's like the 9th grade, the 10th grade, the 11th grade, that there is a build-up of things, a building up of credit, if you will, or information passing, if you will, that ensures that those legislative type things are being met. So I just think it's important to understand that is not, we do not decide what a school is and what a school is not. That is not what we do. We do make sure though that schools that do apply are meeting the legislation that has been approved by the membership.
How you know it don't look good? How can a parent tell this don't smell good?
Well, I like Kobe answer that.
I got
mean? I mean, Kobe gonna
Yeah,
Kobe.
well, I'm gonna have to take my hat off. So I'm gonna have to take my blue NCAA hat
There you
off sometimes and then put my hat back on. I can't. I really don't have the answer to that. I will tell you though that we were fortunate to have a parent of a former student athlete participate in our workshop at Wheeler Fieldhouse last night, and I think it's probably appropriate to say what she was pointing out and kind of emphasizing to the parents. Take responsibility for your loved one or your student athlete. You know, if it doesn't look good, if it sounds funny, it may be funny. You know what I mean? And you have a responsibility, you know, to your child to ensure that things that are in place are in place. And you don't have to take an individual's word for something when you have the resources to check those things yourself.
I got one person I'm gonna use. I'm gonna use Pete right now. Pete,
Okay.
you are a former Division I college coach as
Yes,
well.
correct.
Want to add?
To answer that question that you asked, it's simple to me. If you go to a school that's in their first year, and 2 weeks go by, and the teachers are not making you save all your work in a big binder, get out, run. If you go to a school that's in addition to second year or third year, ask to see the big binder of the kids who are returning. And if they don't have it, get out. Simple. Simple.
Just that simple.
That's what the parents need to do. Easy one.
What does that mean about the big binder? If they don't have that big binder, what does it mean?
If they're not saving their work in a big binder, and they're new, you happen to have a bunch of highly regarded basketball players, NCAA is going to be suspicious. We won't go into reasons why, but they're going to be suspicious automatically. Okay, so they're going to come and look. And if you got a big binder with all your work, you're going to get cleared. And if you don't, you're probably not.
I don't
Save your work.
Hold on, just to further the conversation along, and really just to highlight what Kobe said, it's not about, they're not in the business of saying this school can do business and this school can't. But what you're at risk of putting your kid at that school. You have to know that. And it's not whether it's right or wrong, you have a decision to make as a parent to put your kid in that situation. The problem I have personally, again, taking my coach hat off, never been a parent but seen many horror stories and seen some of them work out and some of them not. Why would you put yourself in a situation like that, thinking that you have the next Kobe Bryant or that you have the next Dr. Drew? Like, why would you do that? You know, there's so many schools in Houston you could go to. Why would you put yourself in an adverse situation without even knowing all the facts? And I know Pete said you may get cleared, but there's a good chance you won't get cleared. Just because you have that binder doesn't necessarily mean they're going to green light you through that process. It just doesn't mean that. Because that means that they keep the work for one kid, they got 100 kids, that means they got to keep the work for all the kids. That's why they don't keep the work. Where are they going to store it? Like, people need to understand, so how long are they going to store it for? 3-4 years? I mean, people understand, like, that's a very difficult process. I'm not saying I would advise you to do it or not to do it. I don't know if that's that's where we're going with this discussion. But the bottom line is, it's very tasking for those people to keep all that work. And on top of that, I know Kobe spoke to the counselor yesterday. I've had, even this past year, counselors don't even know what's going on. So, you know, think about it. I was talking to someone today, it was a school in Indiana. They got 4,500 students. What school is that? Is that Carmel? I guess Kim was saying it is about 4,500 students.
Maybe one of Lawrence schools or something.
Large schools, all right? Now think about this for a second. There was a stat yesterday, you made about 500,000 kids play basketball, and less than 3% play college. And then less than 1% of that, 5% of that 5,000 kids that are freshmen, that enter as freshmen, make the NBA. Think about Mount Carmel High School. There's probably how many counselors there? How many Division I players have come out of Mount Carmel in that span? Maybe 5?
Maybe.
So now think about it. A counselor has to know her job, her primary responsibility is to service everybody.
Yes.
Which the NCAA rules are completely different than matriculation of a regular student. So think about it. She doesn't know all that for 5 people. Think about it. She's not going to know it. So how is she going to help that parent?
Yeah.
They're overwhelmed and overworked. It's a very difficult process. And the best thing that Kobe said yesterday is that the information is free. Okay? It's free. But it doesn't matter if it's free if you don't know what free is. If you don't know where it is, it don't matter if it's free. That's why it's up to, you know, what's going on here today, and it's up to the coaches who bear major responsibility, you know, at all levels, in my opinion, you know, from an integrity standpoint of it's not what you say, It's what you do. It's your job to know you're helping kids. I would say, the last thing I would say is treat your players like you would want somebody to treat your kids. That's the bottom line.
Dang.
I got
Part of the solution process now. How do you solve that? You see what's going on, you smell it, you're around the country.
You just have to get away from people trying to get something done fast. I'm a young guy, but I still go about things the old way. But some people don't like to take the time and effort to go through the long process of getting to where your end goal wants to be. Some people say, well, I can get you this score or this class and you don't have to do this and you don't have to do that. Something comes with that. And I just think if people get back to a more solid foundation, I mean, I don't knock any new school that may come up around the country, that's fine. But as long as that their foundation is built just like a Fort Bend ISD or where I'm from in New York City, PSAL, wherever it may be, come with a solid foundation of what you're trying to do. Like, don't try to reinvent the wheel. You can make a better tire, but you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And I think a lot of people get caught up in trying to do something new and innovative, and some things are left out. And consequently, when that review board comes and they look at your work and it's not there, oh, I didn't know that. And it goes back to what you were saying about ignorance, people not knowing. I just think people need to get back to a more solid foundation of what they're doing.
One thing for sure, it might not be the kids' fault, but it will be their problem.
really good.
Yeah, you've not, in all the years that I've coached, you know, and you hear it, and Chris mentions it all the time, some of the horror stories, right? Guess what? You never hear of who that handler was or who was advising him. It's always, this kid was not eligible. This, we feel so bad. But where was the guy that was advising him? Their name never comes up in the story. And that's the thing, that's the point of it. These young kids, our young kids, they rely so heavily on us as mentors or those that supposedly have the best interests. And I could care less about a lot of different things, but you can't abuse that. That's too precious of a, that's such a tender position to have on a young person that is really and truly like believing in you to assist them in making the right decision. And you can't make the right decision or assist that person if you don't know all the things that you need to know anyway. That's why I stay away from talking about things that I don't know about. It's okay. Hey, I don't know it. I don't know the answer. I talked to 50 counselors today, and they're asking me questions about some of the things that we're talking about in terms of the process, and I don't know all the answers. But I know where I can go get them. I know where I can go research them. And that's the attitude. That's that if you don't know where to go to get this free information that Chris is just talking about, you know, that's a bigger problem as well. But that's kind of that's the mentality that, you know, has to happen. And it's okay not to know, but let's just don't act on things that we're not 100% sure about, because you are affecting that young person's life and could set him back tremendously. I mean, 535,000 kids playing high school ball. Only 1.3% of all kids that are playing ball have any chance of potentially making money overseas, NBA or anything in the sport of basketball. We don't need to be talking about the next level. We need to be talking about going to college.
I tell people all the time, the two least things we're prepared to do is raise children and be married. There's no you have to get a license for either one of those. You can just jump out and bail in and do it and make a lot of mistakes in turn. I think the grassroots basketball, the eligibility process, transitioning on to college basketball thing, I don't feel that and I'll say this in the presence of NCAA representative being here, I don't feel that grassroots basketball is being held accountable. We're handling kids and dealing with kids' futures, but we're not accountable for it. But if we're going to have something to do with prospective student athletes or be in an area where you're going to be exposed to one, then there has to be a level of legitimate accountability to it. Before there was any, go ahead, Coach.
No, so what's your solution to that? How do you hold a summer coach or director?
Well,
you spoke a nerve with that. You see it?
Yeah, well, let me read it. The deal needs to come down to is the fact that the same certification process, if you're going to NCAA certified events, then there needs to be a certain amount. I told Kobe this other day, he was headed out to the Nike meets. I mean, we load kids. Now, I might not be very popular for saying this, but I mean, I feel accountable to the community. I feel accountable to kids because, like Jimmy said earlier, so many times I end up being a guy that has to try to figure out how to, if a kid has a chance, and try to help. But the thing comes down to, we put the kids on 5-6 airplanes. They play 60, 70, 80 games in who knows how many states from March all the way to July the 31st, whenever the season ends. High school coach has them too now, so don't let the high school coach off the hook. High school coach has them. We do all this stuff in between the lines. Outside the lines, could we just at least be accountable? A high school coach has a foul, a grassroots coach has a foul on every player that's in his program. It has an NCAA worksheet that's already in place. We know exactly how many cores he's completed.
How you gonna regulate that?
Paid for that. We're not getting paid. But most of the time, a grassroots branch is going to have a kid, and they're going to be mentoring them, trying to keep them out of trouble, trying to help them to obtain a higher goal, to get a college education, whether it's through basketball or whatever.
And that's exactly.
So when a kid goes to a school, it's not a summer coach's knowledge or responsibility to make sure that he's taking the right core classes. He doesn't know that ahead of time. Now that once you've been through the process for a while, and you've had somebody to come up short, now you're going to say, okay, well, I need to find out how I can help. But there's not any summer coach that can walk into a school, walk into this English teacher's class and say, look, what does he have to do to pass? What do we need to do? Can he get some additional work? Majority of that comes from the high school coach themselves or the counselors. So if they're not qualified to make sure that the kid is doing the right thing and taking the right classes, it should not fall back onto the summer coach who mainly got him to give him an opportunity, who's keeping him out of trouble, who's coming out of his own pocket to help him and feed him everything else. Now you want us to be held accountable to make sure that we doing the counselor's job, we doing the English teacher's job, things of that nature.
Yeah. Let me say this. I've been a summer coach, I've been a college coach, all right? Yes and no, okay? Accountability and responsibility are learned behaviors.
No doubt.
We don't come out the womb with those things.
No doubt.
And what I'm saying is, to your one point, if you want more, you got to be more. It's authentic leadership. A summer coach is still considered a leader, okay? So my thing is, if there's a situation where you're helping a kid, in a basketball situation, we already talked about the numbers. The chance of any kid you have, how many kids you've been coaching summer basketball, how many years? And I'm not saying it's embarrassing.
16.
How many pros have you had? You see my point?
Less than 5, right?
Okay, so my point is, you've had a chance to have way more college graduates. You've had a chance to have way more impact on society by those guys getting degrees than going to play basketball.
Right.
So my point is, and I'm not embarrassed, wouldn't you want to know?
No,
I'm not saying it's not your job. It's not your job description, but it's everybody's job.
Absolutely.
To do it.
What I'm saying is, I do know, and I make sure I take care of that. But when a guy is first getting into some grassroots basketball, whether it's at a young level or not, they don't know what the future holds. They don't know. There's no governing body to say, okay, if you want to get into this is what you have to do. You got to take this class, get certified.
That's exactly my point. I know we're here tonight to talk about rankings, but you put.
I don't know if we're gonna get the rankings, Branch.
Hold on, hear me out.
Y'all go.
Yeah, if we spent nearly as much energy and time as the parents and as a community as a whole concerned about jumping on Jim Hicks because they don't agree with his list, as we do this right here, and then we talk about people coming into this business, you can't go out and start driving a car without a driver's license.
No question.
Right. So there needs to be a system put in place that these people can help us with, but we have to be accountable for ourselves, the community, and our own kids. The operating word we use tonight is, we keep on using over and over again, is mentor. Go define that word.
I think something that's being forgotten, because again, I'm probably the youngest of everyone here, but I've been fortunate. No, in a good way. I mean, my birthday's tomorrow, but that's another thing. I've been fortunate though to be around some greats in the game for 20 years. Kenny Smith, Kenny Anderson, these are people that helped mentor me. But something that I noticed in this generation, and you mentioned it to Coach Lowe here, about pros, is something that I think from the NCAA level people are forgetting. Everyone, when they do enter the AAU scene, everyone's trying to find a pro. And they're not talking about kids going to college. And you're absolutely right. You got a chance of graduating more kids from college than actual pros, but that's where the mix-up comes. Everyone thinks when they have a good kid, he's a pro. They don't talk about graduating college. So when your handlers get involved and they're around, they're trying to find that school that they can get to be a pro, not a college graduate. And I think that's part of the problem as well, that the language and the words that people use, it has to change.
Now get him to be a pro. What's at the end of that for the summer coach? That's
Zero.
in that picture.
Zero.
So what's the carrot that's going around that track? You get him to be a pro.
That's what it is. It's a carrot. You just said that's what exactly the carrot. It's a carrot. I mean, it's different. I played AAU ball and it's been some of the same guys around. Would he keep on running? It's been some major players around the country that have been around since I played. I mean, Boo Williams has been around. But like he just said, a carrot has an expiration on it. Some people run until they get burnt out and they're done. Some people have a recipe and they have a formula that works for them. So that, like you said, the carrot, for some, they think that's what it is and they want to chase that until they realize it was nothing. It was all of a sudden, it wasn't real.
Well, I mean,
Unless they really care.
Well, that's something.
Most of them don't give back.
That's a topic. I mean, most guys that play summer ball, most of the summer coaches chase it. It's like the old theory, and I'll break it down to you. It's the dog, cat, rat, cheese. The dog chasing the cat chasing the rat chasing the cheese. And that's just what goes on in this whole element. And for example, you mentioned, you asked Marlon Lowe, Chris Walker, how many pros here? You coach for 2 summers, and you have one pro, one guy that's playing in the NBA right now, play up under your T-Mac All-Stars, right?
You know better than me.
Yeah. What's his name? From
Hashim Thabit, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, big boy, yeah.
The last time you talked to Hashim Thabit.
Who knows?
Has Hashim Thabit ever came, when last time he sent you a Christmas card?
No.
Did he,
Never.
happy birthday.
Never.
Coach, bought you a dinner.
Never.
You see, you get it?
But
All around the world, the same song.
But see, this is the thing.
That's
not the most part. I never cared about that. All I cared about was one thing, and maybe because I coached college before I did summer basketball. All I cared about is one thing. My college coach, I said this yesterday, she told me all the time, I'll do more for you than you can ever do for me.
No doubt.
Okay? So, but I learned that, and that was a part of my DNA. When I went into it, I knew I had an expiration date with it was a shelf life for every last one of those kids. And at the end of the day, when they get to a certain age, they become adults. It's not their job to take care of me as a grown man.
Well, I mean,
But what I want them to learn is some of those resources that you get. Now let's give back to help the next guy behind you. Let's do that. I'd rather teach them that than them telling them to give me something.
Well, he must didn't learn that.
He's from Africa, so we got to give him a pass.
But that's the hard part with most of them, though. Most of them forget. And they forget. And maybe it's us sometimes handicapping them. We put them in an environment, we try to help them through to make sure, and they lose focus on going through the process. So all we want them to remember is, look, we helped you to get here, and now once you're there, it's other people that need a helping hand as well. We came out of our pocket to help you. Maybe you can kind of help these other guys to take some of the steps that you've taken. A lot of times, majority of the times, they don't give back, or if they give back, they want to make sure that their name is on. They want to start their own team now, instead of helping the people that helped them. Now they want to broaden their perspective, their horizon, make sure that their name is out in the limelight instead of helping back to the same group that people before you came through. So.
I don't want to get off the topic. Before Kobe says I don't want to get off the topic, but at the end of the day, from Kobe speaking to Pete and everybody in here, and then I just met you, the bottom line is to mitigate all these things and to bridge this gap. The biggest gap in life is between knowing and doing. Mm-hmm. It's the biggest gap. A lot of people know a lot of things but don't do anything about it. Okay? And all I'm saying is that to a man in this group, our responsibility as men, okay, is to lift as we climb. It's your job to seek knowledge. But the thing, education is not just for knowledge, it's for action. You need to pursue it. We need to pursue it, and if we're helping people below us, we need to build bridges so they can get across, bridges that we already got across. So the question is, whether you get paid from it or not, you got to question what's your mindset and what's your heart or expectations going into something. That's what's wrong with these guys. It's their expectation is wrong. More importantly, the parents' expectation is wrong. You got to be strong enough to educate the parents, because no matter what, the most unrealistic person about a child's potential is not the child, it's the parent. Hey, do you think this is right or wrong? Okay, I don't agree, but this is how it's got to be done. All right, I'm going to do it. Look, Miss Such and Such, this is the deal. But all Miss Such and Such is thinking about is, she can't pay her light bill. She can't do this. She can't go on a trip. I need my son to be a pro. And as adults, we know the numbers are against her. So we got to tell her, like, look, but he's got a better chance of being doctor or something. But they can't get that. So how do you bridge that gap? Because that is the issue. It's not NCAA, it's not this. The question is, how do you lower the expectations and make it real for the parents? Like, What are you thinking? There's only been one pro out of the city of Houston in the last 10 years.
Yeah, because if you tell
what are
them
you
this son
thinking?
ain't gonna make it, you probably gonna be the next one that's out the door. They're gonna look for the one that's gonna
And you
tell
know
them
what they
that
never
this
talk
son
about?
gonna
You
make
know what they never talk about? They never talk about the kids that don't make it. That's what we need to be talking about. Who talks about, you know, we talk about this all the time, the ones that are hyped up and don't make it, but who talks about the kids that don't make it?
it. We do.
Who talks about it?
That's it. We don't forget about it.
Yeah,
Well,
those small circles that we're in.
That's kind of like in baseball. Nobody cares how many times Barry Bonds struck out or Mark McGwire struck out, and they struck out plenty of times. They just care about how many home runs they get. That's just how society. So let's not get it twisted and try to sit there like that. We don't talk about it then when it happened. If we do talk about it, then the person that talk about it is going to be deemed the hater. He's going to be deemed the guy that don't like you. He's going to be deemed the guy that don't support, don't want to think about, don't care about our program because he's just saying that because he don't ever say about the other program. So that's why nobody never talk about that until after it happened a little bit. Then they go and they blow it up. All the ones you just, as obvious, got an extra ground.
It's the same thing with what we do at the NCAA. That, you know, we get beat up all the time. You know, we're an organization that people think should not exist. They don't understand how the governing body and the structure of it works, and that's fine. But I'm gonna give you an example, and this is a very real example. When August 2nd, 2016 hits, and Houston has a high number of non-qualifiers, Kobe Baker did not do enough. Just saying. The NCAA didn't care about Houston. Just saying. There's not enough that can be done. That's my point. And if you think about it that way, it's all hands on deck. Everybody got a part to play. Everybody. It's not just the people in this room. It's the membership. It's if a college, if a coach from the University of Houston, Prairie View, Texas Southern, Rice University are going out to the high schools, they need to be having the same conversations that we're having with the kids about, you know where you stand academically? Do you know what's on the horizon? The same thing. It's not just one organization or one entity's responsibility. I don't put it, that's why I said earlier, it's not the high school coach or the summer coach or the grassroots coach or the Pop 1 coach, whatever. It's everybody's responsibility to play a part in that. And then you take it beyond that. College coaches are doing some of the same things. You know, I got 3 or 4 guys that I coached in the pros right now playing, you know, but I'm not talking about them guys. I'm going to talk about the guys that got a college degree that went to college at a high level to go be a pro, and they didn't pan out. It's the same thing, but if I don't spend time with them and talk to them about all the other things that are important, guess what? I mean, I get an opportunity to get that college degree and be sitting in a place where you can make an impact. So I think it's just important to realize that, because at the end of the day, it's never going to be enough work that's done. It's always all hands on deck, and everybody's got to be fully involved with this process.
I've heard a lot of calls for some type of certification process for grassroots basketball coaches. And my feeling on that, you hear a lot of calls for drug testing for welfare recipients, but you never hear calls for unemployment benefits. People who receive those to be drug tested. No one's calling for AIG executives who got billions of dollars to get drug tested. So if we're going to have a certification process for grassroots coaches, we better have one for summer baseball coaches. We better have one for the golf pros who take those kids out touring. Otherwise, I have a real problem with that. A real problem.
We're going very deep there. I mean,
Hey, you guys have heard it. Hey, these are the pros of the amateur scene right here. And one thing about it, all hands on deck. That means you guys got to get involved, implement yourself into the solution process. It's enough and long overdue for everybody's talking about what the problems is. We know it's problems out there. You know it's problems out there. Hey, might be a roach running across the floor. Go get a can of Raid. That's what it's all about, people. It's time to go and be all about solutions. So with that being said, on behalf of Kobe, Alan Branch, Peter, Marlon, Dane, and of course Chris, and myself, Jim Hicks, I'd like to go and thank you guys for tuning in with us at the round table. Hey, be sure to join us next time. Thanks.